Welcome back to the channel. This is Trinity Storm and you are watching second part of What If Naruto Lost His Memories. If you enjoy this video, please like, share and subscribe to the channel. Now wasting no more time, let's start the story.
Ken was not at ease in his kimono as he followed Hinata and the twins through the gate into the Hyuga compound. He would have preferred to stay with the sleeping Tsunade, but this was a family dinner. The Uzumaki and Hyuga shared a wall, and the gate was merely a formality that was usually left open. As the family passed, the sole guard nodded to them. Hazashi simply stared ahead, while Kushina waved to the guard. Ken returned the guard's nod, who didn't even flinch at Ken's appearance. Hinata knocked briefly on the main house's doorframe, then mentally counted to 3 before sliding the door open and allowing the children and Ken to enter. Ken simply looked around at the intricate details of the foyer. Hinata lightly tapped his arm to break his stare, and he followed her and the children again. "I feel completely out of place here," Ken reflected. "Hinata and the kids are used to it, but all I know is how to pound metal without getting too caught up in formality when a higher-ranking person came to Kama's forge." The family came to a halt in the dining area. When the group arrived, Hyuga Hiyashi was sitting looking at a scroll, but he moved it to the side and stood. Both children approached him, stopped 2 paces away, and bowed. "Good evening, grandfather," they all said at the same time. "Welcome, grandchildren," Hiyashi replied correctly. He went to one knee and held his arms open after another 5 seconds. The twins ran in to hug him, and he wrapped his arms around them. Ken couldn't help but be moved by a man's actions for his grandchildren. His heart skipped a beat as he realized he needed hugs like that for himself. Hinata took Ken's hand in hers and squeezed it as his face became sad. "Don't be concerned, Ken. We can tell them everything once the memory seal is removed. Memory seals are tricky things, and it's best to keep it quiet for now so they don't get their hopes up that their father has returned." Hiyashi stood in front of Ken and Hinata after finishing hugging the children. "Hello, Ken. Even if you don't remember me, it's nice to see you again." "I am honored to be allowed into your home, Hyuga-sama," Ken said, bowing. The Hyuga leader returned the proper bow with a wry smile. Hiyashi is a nickname for Ken. "We can wait on the rest until the proper times and when small ears are not eavesdropping, thanks to my conversation with Hinata this afternoon." The twins looked at the plates on the table as if they were the most fascinating things in the universe, but they were already busted. Hokage-sama stated that they would have to wait several days before attempting anything. Tsunade-sama also mentioned that she could help me with my burns. Hiyashi nodded and motioned Hinata and Ken to take a seat. Dinner was a low-key affair. For 7-year-olds, the twins were remarkably well behaved. Ken gradually relaxed throughout the evening, even taking a single dish of sake after dinner. Hiyashi laughed as he observed Ken and Hinata. It was almost as if their personalities had flipped since their adolescence. Ken, nay Naruto, was painfully shy throughout the meal, while Hinata spoke in a respectful tone while recounting stories about the twins and Naruto. The twins just sat there with red faces for the majority of Hinata's stories. After dinner, the adults went to a smaller room, while the twins went into a playroom to burn off some of the extra energy that all 7-year-olds seemed to accumulate. Ken was nervous yet again. He was disturbed by stories about deeds he was supposed to have done in his previous life. Many were amusing, but one in particular bothered him. Hinata, I know it sounds strange, but how did someone like you end up with someone like Naruto, me? I've had a long-standing crush on Naruto. Before you left on your training mission with Jiraiya-sama, I never had the courage to act on it. I was still shy when he returned, but after the business with Akatsuki, I knew I had to do something. It all started on my 16th birthday. Hinata's life story. As the last of the party guests filed out of the Hyuga estate, Hinata bowed properly. Her 16th birthday celebration had been a huge success. The heir to Konoha's most powerful clan had reached the age of majority. Naturally, the majority of Konoha's ruling class had been in attendance. The rest of the official guests had included Hyuga family members, higher-ranking clan heads, and a few lesser Fire Country nobles. Her friends, the rest of the so-called Konoha 11 and their Jonin instructors, had all come at her invitation. Even her invitation to Naruto had been approved by her father. Her relationship with her father had improved in the 4 years since her first Chunin exam. More specifically, the transformation began following Neji's defeat to Naruto in the finals and Hiyoshi's revelation to the boy about his brother's death. Hiyoshi had noticed Hinata's steady improvement since that time. She was an upper-level Chunin at the time and had been recommended for a position with Anbu. Hinata had reluctantly declined that position in favor of more formal training in house leadership methods in the coming years. She smiled as she remembered Naruto's entrance. Naruto walked into the hall and came to a halt at the receiving line. Hinata had cast a glance down at him as they moved down the line, in between greeting her guests. Naruto was dressed formally in a gray kimono with a pattern of small orange frogs. His Hiti 8 was slung around his neck like it had been during the third's funeral, and his hair was actually tamed. His posture was upright and proper, but relaxed, as if he'd done this before. Most likely, Jiraiya worked on his manners during his apprenticeship, Hinata reasoned. When it was Naruto's turn, he bowed correctly to Hiyoshi first, then to Hinata. Hinata-sama, Hyuga-sama, thank you for inviting me to your birthday party. The invitation was a huge honor for me. Hiyoshi had also bowed correctly. Your manners surpass my expectations. Naruto-san. It appears that your apprenticeship to a Sannin was beneficial to you. Please address me as Hiyoshi because we are both students of the same teacher. Naruto laughed, thank you very much, Hiyoshi-sama. During my 3 years as Jiraiya apprentice, senseis I had to meet with many daimyos and clan leaders who valued his advice on important matters. I needed to be seen as a valuable apprentice and not bring him down. It's not like the old coot hasn't embarrassed himself enough. Man, this formal speaking stinks. Naruto pondered. Hiyoshi nodded and smiled slightly. Perhaps we could talk about some of Jiraiya more sensei's colorful characteristics in the future, Naruto-san. I'm sure you have some stories as outrageous as mine. It was an interesting experience studying under the man, and I know my time with him was well spent. Naruto and Hinata's eyes widened slightly at that remark, and Naruto coughed slightly to hide his surprise. I'm looking forward to it, Hiyoshi-sama, Naruto said, clearly agitated. Jiraiya had apparently never mentioned his other genin students other than the fourth. He then bowed once more and walked down the hall. Hinata's memories were interrupted by her father. Come to my office at 9 a.m. tomorrow, daughter. We need to talk about a few things about your future. Hello, father, Hinata said as she watched her father walk down the hall to his rooms. Hinata was sitting in her father's office when he arrived at 9 o'clock. He sat at his desk, looking over at Hinata. Until now, you have only been an heir by birthright. You will be formally invested as the heir to the Hyuga clan within a year. I must admit that I have been tempted in the past to prefer your sister, Hanabi, over you. With the possibility of losing your status, I believed you would mature into the type of person the clan would want as an heir. That method does not appear to have been successful. Instead, it was the encouragement of your friends that propelled us to this point. My older daughter appears to have taken longer to blossom than the younger, and it took a special person to assist in this. I am not deafeningly dia. I am well aware of your childhood crush on Naruto-san, as well as your obsession with him. I'll admit he's not a model ninja, but his desire to do better, improve, and become stronger was one you took on yourself, and you've benefited from it. Last night, several branch house elders complimented him on his demeanor. They were all expecting the crass prankster we all know and were pleasantly surprised by the well-mannered young man who attended your party. Now let's get down to business. As you are aware, the speaker is expected to continue the line. You, on the other hand, are not married and are no longer engaged. As a result, before your formal investiture as clan chief, you must find a suitable man and marry, or you will lose your status as heir to your sister. That is a clan rule, not one of mine, and tradition will not bend so far in your favor, daughter. Furthermore, because you are of legal age, you have the right to choose a suitable man from a list of options deemed worthy by the clan. Hiyashi took a small scroll from his sleeve and placed it on his desk. Hinata, it's been a difficult search for the names on that scroll. I've had the clan archivists and genealogists go through all of the Konoha bloodlines and clans files we have. There are currently no worthy clan members who are far enough away from you to marry, and the sons of many local feudal lords are not acceptable to me. To be honest, the Great Ninja War that ended 17 years ago and the Kyuubi attack 16 years ago have broken many clans and families. We Hyuga fared better and continue to be the strongest in Konoha. In fact, many of the ninja clans that remained in Konoha at the time barely qualified as families in terms of membership and power. That was how bad things were in our village. You and your friends are among the first children born after the wars, and you are the first of the newest heirs to reach the age of majority. Many clans have rebuilt and avoided extinction through adoption, betrothal, and early marriages. We of the Hyuga are renowned for our wealth, power, and bloodline, so we rarely practice betrothal and are able to select the best from among those available to become Hyuga. When possible, we prefer to keep the bloodline pure, but there are times when we must look outside the clan for marriage. We consider not only family status, but also techniques that could be made our own. A person's accomplishments are also taken into account. The clan elders have currently left a short list of 9 young men who could be considered acceptable to the Hyuga clan. Hinata took the scroll from the desk and gently opened it. All are younger than you, but only by 2 years, and come from good clans. If the clan chose you politically, the young man chosen from that list would be the nephew of the daimyo of the Land of Fire. However, as your father, I would not recommend him because he is a jerk who has never worked a day in his life. As the leader of your clan, I am obligated to include him. Do you have any immediate questions, daughter? Hinata lowered her gaze to the scroll in her hand. She knew in her heart that Naruto-kun would not be on that list. But one thing her father had said stuck with her. You said you were no longer betrothed, father. That means I was at one point. May I inquire as to how and to whom this occurred? Hiyashi nodded and smiled sadly. In my youth, I was a member of a genin team, as everyone who could train was assigned to the task of winning the war. We remained a team until we became jonin, and we remained good friends throughout the war. On that team was the man I describe as my best friend. He did not come from a noble family, nor did he have a bloodline, but his parents were skilled weaponsmiths. He rose to prominence and eventually became a leader among our ninja. To us, my friend became more than just a war leader. He helped Konoha survive and was feared by the rest of the ninja world. We got together with our wives about 2 weeks before the Kyuubi attack. They were also good friends. Both were expecting, and the doctors had determined that my friend was expecting a son, while we were expecting a daughter. We drank sake all night and laughed about what was to come. At one point, we discussed how having children would complicate our political lives by allowing power seekers and sycophants to gain access to us through the children. Your mother joked that we should get the babies married so neither of us has to deal with power brokers later on. My father overheard us joking and immediately told us that we should continue. Your grandfather was a wise man who always planned for the future. My friend's techniques would be an excellent addition to the Hyuga, and the position he held would be extremely valuable to the clan. My father told me at the time that I would have many sons in the future and that having a daughter would be advantageous. My father's plan was accepted. I knew he was a plotter, but he said he'd be happy with just the connection to a cage. My friend and I just laughed it off, but I'm sure you remember your mother's stories about how your grandfather was. He was very formal and enjoyed legal etiquette. So you were married before either of you were born. However, the Kyuubi attacked just a few weeks later. That attack killed both my friend and his wife. Hinata, if they had lived, things would have been so much better. You would have been married to the fourth Hokage's son. Wait a minute. We got married just because we were betrothed? Ken stepped in. Not quite, Hinata replied, it was a little more complicated than that. Hinata sat in stunned silence for a few moments as her father sat quietly. Her mind was struggling to comprehend what she had been told. If the fourth and his family had lived, she would have married the son of a Hokage by now. Father, may I beg for an hour to think and compose myself from this news before we continue to speak on other matters? She asked, looking up. You may, daughter. Arigato, Hinata rose and walked through the garden. She was already aware that her Naruto-kun would not be on the list because he was more than 2 months her senior, and her father had stated that all the names were of people younger than her. I get to pick, and the only one I'd pick is forbidden to me. But something my father said bothers me. Hinata returned to her father's office after an hour. I have a few more questions about a betrothal contract, father. Is it enforceable even if one of the betrothed's parents has died? Yes, it is the responsibility of the child's guardian to enforce the contract. It trumps any agreement made, with the exception of a successful marriage. If one of the parties has married another, it becomes an automatic default. There is virtually no chance that a child of the fourth was born in your case because there is no record of such a child. Furthermore, he would have had to be born between the party and the Kyuubi attack, on the day both the fourth and his wife died. Because there aren't many blondes in Konoha, the child would have been discovered long ago. Hiyashi began the daily lessons with a silent nod from Hinata. Hiyashi dismissed her from class for the day at noon. Hinata took her lunch break to mull over a few stray thoughts. Her father's words rang in her ears, as if she was being told something beneath what he actually said. The fact that he mentioned blondes would keep coming back to her mind. She decided to go to the archives after eating lunch. Hinata was greeted with a low bow from the branch family member in charge of the archives. Hello there, Hinata-sama. I'm Hoshi, the keeper of the clan archives. How can I assist you today? My father gave me a list of names today. I'd like to learn more about our clan's knowledge of them before meeting them in person in the coming months. Because I am older than all of them, I have some time to learn before I can pursue any meaningfully. Hoshi bowed once more and led Hinata deeper into the structure. It looked like any other library Hinata had visited, except that the shelves on one side held volumes and the smaller section held many small scrolls. Hoshi spoke as she guided Hinata around. The genealogy section is divided into 2 sections. Those who are alive and those who are deceased. In the main section, all relevant people in Konoha are listed by clan. A simple family tree, including birth, death, and children. People who are not members of a clan are listed alphabetically in tomes. We do this because when a prodigy or new bloodline appears, it is best to know where it came from. For non-Hyuga, these files date back to the beginning of Konoha. We have agreements with most clans to exchange basic lineage trees and trade that information for purposes such as the list in your hands, Hinata-sama. All living persons of interest, as well as those who have accomplished great deeds, have their own scroll in the shelves. When a person dies, the scroll is transcribed into a volume and filed in the deceased section, either by clan or otherwise. What makes someone a relevant person, Hoshi-san? They are either a ninja or a non-ninja member of a known clan. Knowing your friend's strengths and weaknesses is just as important as knowing your enemies, because alliances do not last forever. Those who are friends today may be dangerous to the clan tomorrow, and knowing everything we can only serves to protect the clan. Hinata-sama, information is also a form of power. Hinata only nodded and continued down the scroll wall, past the listed clan names to the end, where non-clan ninja were kept. She took out the scroll with the name, Uzumaki, Naruto, and read it. Why did you pick that one, Hinata-sama? That boy is a pain in the neck. A few years ago, he defeated Neji-san in a Chunin final. I'll be honest. Adding that information to his scroll was something I wished I hadn't had to do. But the boy did catch Jiraiya attention-samas in some way. That man could have chosen anyone to be his apprentice and chose that no account. Hoshi's rant was cut short when Hinata locked his gaze on the archivist. Naruto-san was my academy classmate and an accomplished ninja. He works tirelessly to serve Konoha and keep everyone here safe. He may not be the best ninja in the village, but he serves it and deserves at least that much respect as such. Hoshi quickly bowed. True, Hinata-sama. I apologize. Hinata unfurled the scroll's top. It displayed basic vital statistics such as hair color, eye color, blood type, and birth date. The line for parent names is empty, Hoshi-san. True, Hinata-sama. I recall some information about that scroll from when it was made. One of my assistants was tasked with gathering information on your graduating class. The assistant brought Uzumaki scroll sans to my attention because it was the most difficult to make. It appears that Uzumaki-san was not born in this hospital, but was listed as having been born on the day of the Kyuubi attack in the orphanage's records. He had been personally taken there by the third and told the mistress of the place the name and that the child had only been born a few days before. His birthmarks caused many problems for him there, and the staff at the orphanage refused to talk much about him. However, later hospital records that we obtained showed that he was treated or admitted multiple times for malnutrition and neglect prior to becoming a genin. His achievements since then, notable jutsu used, and other public information such as the genin squad are all included. Did you know he was present during the sand invasion when the Uchiha defeated the boy who would become Kage? Hinata read the scroll and whispered, Naruto-kun defeated Gaara. Wait, Hinata-sama, what was that? In that battle, Naruto defeated Gaara of the Sand Village. Whatever source you used for that information was incorrect. Gaara even mentioned it months later when a group of us were at the Sand Village. Naruto is held in high regard by the Kage. I will correct that information on the scroll, Hinata-sama. That's great. Please do it. Hoshi-san, the person I really wanted to look up right now, is no longer alive. I was interested in learning more about the fourth and his family. My father mentioned something interesting to me today, and I was curious. Good day, Hinata-sama. The man directed Hinata to a row of non-clan tomes. Hinata-sama, the fourth, was a fascinating character. He rose from nothing to become Hokage before dying to save Konoha from the demon Kyuubi. Oh, there you have it. Unfortunately, no clan can claim him, so he is only listed in the Other Ninja section. He does, however, rate his own volume due to the sheer volume of information here. Hoshi turned down the volume on a nearby table and took a step back to allow Hinata access. She opened the book and examined the important information. No siblings, wife's name but no family name for the wife, no children, basic vital statistics, height, blood type, hair, eyes. The fourth and his wife died on the same day, the day of the Kyuubi attack. Hinata turned the page and noticed a small sketch of the fourth's face. Hinata had never seen a sketch of the fourth before and was taken aback by the striking resemblance to Naruto. Hoshi-san, the mountain's face is very different from this. The resemblance is not even close. Hello, Hinata-sama. There were very few photos of the fourth available. People had to make do with blurry photos because he rarely stayed long enough for pictures in his line of work. This sketch was created by your mother the night after he attended a dinner party here. The artisans on the mountain took many liberties in order to achieve a more heroic appearance in the stone. Nobody born since then has seen the true face of the fourth. However, we have preserved it here. So that's the face that would have been my father-in-law, Hinata reasoned. A few scars on his cheek, and he'd be Naruto. This is far too coincidental. When was the fourth's wife due to give birth when she died, Hoshi-san? That was never written down, but I believe it was around 4 weeks before you were due. Then you arrived 2 weeks late, which irritated your mother. Did I arrive late? Hello, Hinata-sama. Approximately 2 weeks late. Is that significant? It could be, Hoshi-san. It's possible. Could you please restore this, as well as the scroll, after you have updated it? I have to get somewhere. Hoshi-san, thank you. I'll be back in a few days to look at some of the families on my list. Hinata lay awake that night, thinking. If my theory is correct, several older people in the village may know what I'm looking for. But why wouldn't anyone bring it up? Fear, shame, and protection. There are numerous reasons, but only one that is important to me right now. To find the answer, I need to know who Naruto's true parents were. Hinata spent the next few weeks poring over the volumes in the Hyuga archives as well as those in Konoha's public library. None of the texts contained the information she sought. Anything that could connect Naruto to the fourth was speculative at best. None of the orphanage's personal documents were available to the public, and too many older people disliked Naruto for no apparent reason. It appeared that a concerted effort had been made to conceal the fourth's personal life as well. His achievements were known, but nothing about the man outside of his office. Iruka had assisted in the search for a photo of the Genin team in the academy files under the guise of Hinata seeing her father as a new Genin, but the team picture was not there, only a shot of a young Hiyashi who resembled Neji. When Hinata saw it, she smiled wryly. She was certain that if Hiyashi and Hizashi had not been identical twins, this entire hunt would not have been necessary. She would have been married to Neji by now. Because her father and uncle were identical twins, Neji was more of a half-brother than a cousin, which was too close for a clan like the Hyuga to bear children. An attempt to talk to Kakashi about the fourth failed because Kakashi simply left, stating that it was too painful to discuss. Hinata realized she was out of options for a background investigation and would have to resort to something more overt. She scheduled a meeting with Tsunade, the fifth Hokage. Tsunade smiled as Hinata sat in front of her. Hinata didn't waste any time getting to the point. Tsunade-sama, as you are aware, I am the heir to the Hyuga clan, and as such, I am required to marry in order to fulfill a part of my role in that. Before I can move forward with my future plans, I need to solve a minor issue. My father informed me that I had been betrothed to someone, but that the contract had expired. As Hokage, you have access to the village's contract records as well as all of the files amassed by the previous Hokage in your library. I was hoping to use these to ensure that the contract could not be enforced in the future or to determine whether the other person mentioned is still alive. The person who made the contract died, and the person I was betrothed to was presumed to have died in the Kyuubi attack 16 years ago. That is quite a task, Hinata. The official records surrounding that time are, at best, sketchy. In Konoha, all betrothal contracts are filed with the Hokage, so a copy of yours may still exist. The attack failed to reach the secure records vaults. Why bring this up now, though? If the person had lived, I'm sure your clan would have worked hard to track him down. As I previously stated, Tsunade-sama, the contract had just been written when the maker died. His son may have lived and been unaware of his ancestors. I know this is hard to believe, Tsunade-sama, but the person who made the contract was the fourth, and I believe Naruto is his son, Hinata said, a ghost of her old stutter returning. Tsunade sat stunned for a few moments, just staring at Hinata. This Chunin had discovered one of Konoha's most closely guarded secrets. Tsunade knew Hinata was telling the truth, but she had to pretend she didn't. If true, Hinata, this is a troubling case. Finding out Naruto is the fourth son would be a huge problem in the village, especially given his treatment over the years. I'll need to consult Jiraiya on this one because I'm not as familiar with the fourth as he was. I had left the village shortly before the fourth was elected, and I was one of the few people who knew he was married and that his wife had also died in the attack. I was also aware that she was pregnant. Jiraiya was too much of a braggart not to tell me, but I was too preoccupied with my own loss at the time. Tsunade paused again, fighting her still painful memories. Shizune will locate and read the betrothal contract. If the information you have provided is correct, I will conduct a search of the official records. In any country, the offspring of a cage should not be overlooked. On this one, I'll also have to go through the third's own files. The old man despised paperwork even more than I do, and he threw things into boxes at random. Allow me a few weeks. If nothing more pressing demands my attention, I will find what I can. For my part, I'll need to know what you know and give Shizune all of your data. We will, one way or another, solve this mystery. I'm glad you came to me with this, Hinata. Naruto is important to me, and I sometimes treat him as if he were a younger brother or a son. I know you love him a lot, and if what you say is true, you might end up being like a daughter-in-law to me. Tsunade smiled at the girl, who was slightly blushing. Now, excuse me while I return to my paperwork. I'm sure Shizune has another cart full just waiting for you to open the door. Hinata stood, bowed, and walked away. I already know you're the Hokage's son, Naruto. I wish we could find the documented proof we've been looking for years. It won't make things right for you, but it will make things better, Tsunade reasoned before explaining things to Shizune. It took 2 weeks for Hinata to hear back from Tsunade. For the most part, the girl had been kept out of Konoha by a C-level diplomatic mission to the land of Tea. Hinata was asked to wait in the Hokage's office when her team was dismissed after reporting back in with Tsunade at the mission debriefing. Tsunade took out a small number of scrolls and files, and Hinata waited. The simplest part of this was locating the betrothal contract. If not completed by the 18th birthday, it becomes null and void, with all assets promised as dowry delivered as a fee. I must admit that your grandfather drafted a heinous contract. The majority of the terms are skewed in favor of the Hyuga. The couple is promised little more than a place to live and would have retained your and your children's freedom from the caged bird seal. The techniques of the fourth were included in the contract to be shared with the Hyuga. We were unable to prove the link between Naruto and being the son of the fourth. We only have circumstantial evidence. His looks are the most enticing. Naruto, as you pointed out, simply resembles the fourth. It's surprising that no one has mentioned this before. His birth occurred a few weeks before the fourth child was due, but being born on the day of the Kyuubi attack still fits the theory. The only report on the fourth's wife's death was fairly gruesome, but there is no mention of her child. The boy is an orphan, as the third himself stated in public that his parents died in the attack, along with his date of birth. Hinata, I can't find any other official records that confirm or deny your claim. I discovered a note about that day in the third's journal. The relevant part primarily states that the fourth was frantic in his search for a way to defeat the Kyuubi, but all he had was a forbidden sealing jutsu. The one who sealed Kyuubi into Naruto, said Hinata. With an arched brow, Tsunade looked at Hinata. Tsunade-sama, Naruto confirmed his seal after the Akatsuki incident a few months ago. He felt it was important that we understand why the group was working so hard to apprehend him. That makes things a little easier to explain. As the Kyuubi approached, the hospital was evacuated, and there were no children available. Your father then arrived at the tower, carrying Naruto. There was no other mention of what happened after that I could find, except that the fourth said Naruto should be considered a hero. Many were opposed to even letting Naruto live in the sealed records of the village council, but he was allowed to live after strong support from the third, primarily from your father and several other prominent clans. That was when the third imposed a ban on teaching the sealed Kyuubi to the younger generation. Hokage eyes only, the minutes of the council meeting were sealed. Your father appears to know more about this than the official records indicate. I believe he has vital information that will help you solve your mystery. Hinata, I've given you a mission to find out what your father knows for me. The Hyuga heir arrived at her scheduled lesson the following morning, carrying Tsunade's information scroll. As she sat, Hiyashi noticed the Hokage mark on the scroll. Daughter, what have you got today? I've been researching the betrothal you mentioned to me after my birthday, father. There were some facts surrounding it that bothered me. The words you used to tell me about it were unusual for you. The Konoha records contained far too many inconsistencies for me to be certain whether what I suspect is true or false. I looked through the village's clan records but found them to be incomplete, so I asked the Hokage for more information. There was also insufficient information. That bothered the Hokage, because village records should be the most complete in terms of its citizens' ancestors. Tsunade-sama officially requested that I provide her with any information uncovered during my investigations. Hiyashi spoke quietly, I see. What have you discovered, Hinata-chan? Hinata was taken aback by her father's familiarity with her. He hadn't addressed her as Hinata-chan since her mother died shortly after Hanabi was born. Hinata continued, steeling herself. There appears to be someone who knows what I'm looking for, but that person has not made such information public. Why haven't you told anyone that Naruto is the fourth son, father? Hiyashi closed his eyes and slowly nodded. You've put everything together. It means you're committed enough to come to me and say it out loud. Such tenacity befits my heir. You must care deeply about the boy to be so diligent in your search and put yourself in such danger on his behalf. I need to get a few things ready. I'll call you back this afternoon and go over everything with you. Hinata rose, bowed, and walked away, leaving Hiyashi alone, a pained expression on his face as the man was lost in memories. Hinata sat in the garden, her gaze fixed on the family shrine. Time seemed to stand still as she awaited her father's message, but eventually one of the branch members approached her and informed her that Hiyashi was ready for her. Hinata nodded and went to the office, slightly trembling. Hiyashi stood at the office door, waiting for Hinata, and told her to take a seat. He then shut the door and pressed a small paper seal. To keep unwanted eyes and ears from learning things they don't need to know. Similar seals adorned the remaining 3 walls, ceiling, and floor. Hiyashi sat back down at his desk. Several scrolls were on the desk in front of him. All bore the clan and Hokage's official marks. These scrolls contain the foundation of the knowledge you seek, daughter. First and foremost, the clan copy of your betrothal. Hiyashi raised one scroll to reveal Hinata. Following that, an open letter signed and dated by the 3rd after his reinstatement as Hokage, entrusting the other sealed documents here to myself. One is the official record of the boy named Uzumaki Naruto's birth and lineage. It's still sealed, but it says Naruto is the 4th son and that I witnessed his birth. Finally, I have sealed in this scroll the 4th's will, personal effects, and remaining legacy to be given to his son on or before his 17th birthday if the executor, myself, and trustee, the Hokage, believe the boy is free of the influence of the Kyuubi sealed within him. The will and lineage are currently sealed and will be opened in official forums when the time comes. All personal papers and jutsu scrolls known to exist at the time of the 4th's death are also sealed within the scroll. Father, were you aware that if the betrothal contract is not completed by Naruto's 18th birthday, all items stated as dowries will be payable in full to the parties involved? No, I hadn't read it that carefully at the time. It had been over 16 years. This is inconvenient. I knew my father cared about the clan, but not to that extent. But I'm sure you have many more questions, and simply getting these documents out is the most basic thing we'll do here today. After we've finished, you'll take them to the Hokage, and I'll meet with her shortly after. Father, I only have one genuine question. Why? Why conceal all of this? That is the most difficult question, daughter. I have to tell you everything so that you can understand it. We had little warning when the Kyuubi attacked. It had only been a few hours at most. We didn't know who unleashed the beast on us at the time, but many assumed it was Iwa. The 4th decimated their military power during the war, and many in the village still craved Leaf Village blood. Civilians were evacuated, and all shinobi waited. At the tower, I was with the 4th, 3rd, and Jiraiya, as well as our wives. Tucci, another member of our team, was also present. His wife and daughter had already been taken to a shelter. We 7 were combing through every forbidden scroll we could find in search of a way to defeat the beast. All we discovered was the Death Reaper seal that the 4th had created years before. He refused to sacrifice anyone else because it took 2 lives to use. The caster's life would be sacrificed, and a second life would be born to be the vessel for the beast's essence. Tucci and I were asked to take the women to the shelter when the beast got too close. The one closest to the tower was a short distance away. However, when we were just outside the shelter, the beast's winds hit Konoha and shattered nearby trees. Because of the Kyuubi's tails, the winds were swirling like a tornado. Our group was hit by shrapnel from the trees. I used Kaden until I was exhausted, but the debris and wind continued to pelt us. Tucci's spine was fractured when a large branch caught him in the back. He avoided being paralyzed, but this rendered him unable to continue as a shinobi in the future. Naruto's mother had some emergency medical training and worked on him while I recovered, but the wind caught up with her. She was dragged away from us and into the air. I went after her after leaving your mother with Tucci. Even though she was 8 months pregnant, she was still a ninja. She kept a spool of ninja wire on her person. She managed to get a line onto a tree near the base of the tower and pull herself to the ground. However, flying debris struck her in the knees from behind, severing both of her lower legs. Even if I tried my hardest, we both knew I wouldn't be able to get her to help in time because she would bleed to death first. She took one of my kunai and sliced into her belly as I tried to stop the bleeding. Hiyashi paused, as the emotions of his memory came flooding back to him as he related them to Hinata. Tears streamed down his cheeks. Hiyashi paused before continuing to dry them with a handkerchief. She snatched Naruto from herself and begged me to save him. She kissed him and then fell silent. The baby cried weakly, but all I could do was take him into the tower for safety. As they looked at me holding Naruto, I stumbled in, mostly in shock. My expression must have communicated more than words could. The third examined the infant but stated that he was having difficulty breathing and did not appear to be alive. I can't describe the agony on the fourth's face. He simply appeared to have lost everything, which he had. His wife died first, and now his son would die in less than an hour, suffocated due to underdeveloped lungs. He took the baby, the sealing scroll, and his Hiraishin to flee to the battle. Before we could catch up, he summoned Gamabunta and used Naruto as the vessel for his Death Reaper seal. The beast would keep the boy alive, the fourth knew. He wanted his son to live so badly that he chose death over the boy's life. As he died, he asked that the village remember Naruto as a hero. Hiyashi paused for a moment before proceeding. The beast was defeated, but the true demons emerged. As your mother watched Naruto, the third, Jiraiya, and I had to meet with the village elders and clan council hours later. We decided they couldn't know Naruto was the fourth son. We were aware that Danzo would use his influence to control the boy through Anbu and Root under the guise of security from assassination and turn the boy into a weapon. We believed that as a nameless orphan, he stood the best chance of surviving. His surname, Uzumaki, was derived from his mother's family name. That seemed appropriate as well. It also describes the swirling winds that killed his mother and the swirling seal on his stomach. We weren't sure how well the fourth seal would hold up. Other Jinchuriki have demonstrated bad tendencies as well as possession by the beasts, which influenced the decision. A demon controlling the son of a cage was not something that should have happened. Furthermore, the threats of Rock and Cloud loomed. The recent war had been won for us by the fourth, and if Naruto's ancestors were revealed, they would go to any length to kill the child. Add to that the fact that we had been severely weakened by the Kyuubi assault, and we faced a disaster that could lead to Konoha's demise. As a result, we concealed the truth. We three, along with a few seal experts, were able to persuade the council that if the boy died young, the seal would fail and release the beast again. We told them it would take at least 20 years to be certain the beast would not outlive Naruto. This alone would save the boy's life, as word would spread among the populace that harming the boy would cause the seal to fail. Others wanted the boy banished, but Danzo and his war hawks stopped them, saying it was best to keep an eye on him. We Hyuga and some of the weaker clans wanted to adopt the boy, but the balance prevented us from doing so because no one clan should have sole access to the boy. It was insane. In the end, 3 factions fought over the fate of a newborn, each with their own ideas about how to handle the boy. What one group desired, the other 2 groups would oppose. Finally, the third enacted a law prohibiting anyone from speaking of the beast sealed within the boy and declared that the entire village would care for their hero together. The child would become a Hokage ward and be placed in the orphanage with the other children. I wish it had turned out that way. I had no choice but to wait and hope. The only overt assistance I could provide was financial support to the orphanage. Danzo's supporters in the faction that wanted to kill Naruto were the ones who spread the word about how much the boy was despised. Danzo did this so Naruto would be treated harshly and tortured in order for him to rescue the boy. The others did so in the hope of killing or banishing him. Even members of my own clan began to fear and hate the boy, despite my orders to treat him with kindness. Even the most powerful and all-seeing eye cannot see everything. However, if it is discovered who he is, the village could be shattered. Only myself, your mother, your uncle, and his wife were aware that Naruto was the fourth son. The truth was kept hidden from the elders, but some had suspicions. The Hyuga were not known for their orphan care. Naruto's blonde hair and blue eyes were also strong indicators of his ancestry. Only the fourth and Yamanaka families were this color. To make matters worse, over a dozen Hyuga ninja had died in the Kyuubi assault, so animosity toward Naruto was strong. Those who suspected tried several times to turn the clan against the boy because some elders did not want the possibility of your betrothal becoming a reality. Many veiled threats have been made against you over the years. A member of the branch who lost his only son in the attack authorized the kidnapping on your third birthday. He reasoned that if he couldn't get rid of the boy, he'd get rid of you for the sake of the clan. To protect your life, I made a vow not to mention his betrothal to you. Unless specifically asked, I agreed to do so. I would keep the truth hidden, but if pressed, I would give an honest answer. So, with your 16th birthday approaching, I was in a pickle. My clan's happiness or my daughter's happiness? The clan elders continue to wrongfully blame Naruto for the clan deaths caused by the Kyuubi. Even though he is more skilled and well-known than any we could find, the clan elders will not consider him suitable for marriage. That's why Naruto didn't make your list. I couldn't go against them in this because they are currently branding Hanabi with the caged bird seal over my head. If I tried to add Naruto to the list, I'd be deposed and Hanabi branded before the day was done. My only option was to mention the engagement in passing. I felt that if you were determined enough to discover the truth using the clues I could provide, I could tell you everything. If you didn't care enough about Naruto, I would wait until his 18th birthday to reveal his ancestry and keep the betrothal a secret. Hiyashi took the sealed scrolls from Hinata's desk and handed them to her. Please deliver these to the Hokage. Naruto is a fine young man who will grow into a fine man. He'd also make an excellent husband. He has earned the respect of many ninja clans, including mine. They can now understand why I never opposed him and factor that into their opinion of him, for better or worse. I'd also advise you to remind Tsunade that Naruto is still a ward of the Hokage. She will grasp the significance of that. Hinata noticed a single tear reappear in the corner of her father's eye as a result of the pain of the memories he had shared. She quickly bowed and exited the office to go to her room to think. Hinata was taken aback by her father's shocking revelations. He had known who Naruto was for years but had never told anyone. She couldn't recall ever hearing her father say anything negative about Naruto. Hiyashi usually kept quiet about Naruto or told clan members not to talk about him. Most took it as a quiet disapproval of the boy, but looking at things with the new information Hinata now had, she realized something important. Hiyashi was simply preventing things from progressing against Naruto by prohibiting mention of him in clan business. This also allowed the clan to maintain a no official stance on Naruto. She also realized that, unlike other children, she had never received such instructions from her parents. Her personal reluctance stemmed from a combination of shyness on her part and others in school telling her not to be around the boy. Peer pressure. Most adults avoided the boy by pretending he didn't exist. Many businesses would refuse to do business with him, and only a few restaurants would serve him. Ichiraku Ramen, which was owned and run by Tucci, the same Tucci who had been a teammate of the fourth and her father, was the only place that actually welcomed Naruto. It would make sense if he also knew the truth. On her way to see the Hokage with the scrolls her father had given her, Hinata decided to stop for lunch. Hinata sat at the ramen stand counter and was greeted warmly by Ayame. Hinata requested to speak with Tucci and ordered a lunch special. Tucci took a break from cooking and came up to the front when Hinata was nearly finished. "Hinata-san, I'm sorry. Ayame mentioned that you wanted to speak with me. I hope not to complain?" He laughed as he joked, and Hinata laughed back. "Tucci-san was not present. I just found out this morning that you were on a team with my father under Jiraiya years ago. I also had a quick question that you don't have to answer if it bothers you." Hinata spoke quietly. "Have you known Naruto's parents for a long time?" Tucci backed up slightly in surprise, having learned that he was too close to Hinata to hear the question. "I need to take a break and make a delivery, Ayame. Please, Hinata, accompany me." Hinata nodded and followed Tucci as he walked quickly. Ayame was perplexed when she realized her father had forgotten the delivery box. Tucci sat nervously on an out-of-the-way bench as he led Hinata to a nearby park. "This is a difficult subject, Hinata. Nobody is certain who Naruto's parents were. I have a strong suspicion based on what I know, but..." Tucci exhaled a sigh. "I know who he is in my heart, but I can't prove it." Hinata took the scroll her father had given her out. "I can, Tucci-san. My father had it in the clan vault for the third. He was present at Naruto's birth." Tucci lowered his head into his hands as he looked at the scroll in her hand. After a few seconds, he looked up and said, shakily, "But how did you figure out who Naruto was?" "The assault injured me. It nearly paralyzed me and rendered me unable to shape chakra. When Hiashi brought Naruto's mother in, your mother was with me. It was upsetting to witness. She had been a skilled ninja. She was fiery and fearless, and she never gave up. To see her dead like that, with all of her injuries. Every drop of blood. Her stomach was too low under the sheet, which I noticed. Before I could respond, Hiashi stated that he did not want to comment on her condition. Only that it would be better and more honorable if he didn't say anything about it right now. I became enraged and yelled at him that if he did not respond, we would no longer be friends. He only nodded and walked away. It took months for me to feel well enough to leave the house. Because your grandfather died in the attack, your father was appointed head of your clan at the time. I was no longer a shinobi in training. We had no contact with our new lives to attend to. Anyway, I knew a child had been used to seal the Kyuubi, but that was all I knew. The Sandame's law forbade people from openly discussing it. I retired and went to work in my father's restaurant, taking care of my family. Years later, Naruto approached Ichiraku for the first time. He was looking so skinny. People either shoved him out of the way or completely ignored him. I called the boy in and fed him as much as he could without getting sick, telling him he could always eat there. I also heard mutterings about demons and pieced everything together. I informed your father that I had met a small blonde boy and now understood the reason for his silence that night, and I apologized. Your family stopped in for lunch a week later. I believe your mother was pregnant with your younger sister again. Naruto was eating at his usual spot, and you were adorable, hiding behind your mother as she told him to eat more slowly. He just looked scared, ate faster, and then ran out when he was done. Are there many blondes in Konoha, Tucci-san? Your father inquired. No, Hiashi-san. We should look after the ones we have left, Tucci-san. Hi. As you all left, your mother smiled at me and you waved. That's how I found out. Tucci-san, I'm going to see the Hokage after this. Perhaps another blonde can assist us in caring for the one we love. Hinata walked slowly up to Tsunade's office. Her courage from facing her father was gradually fading as each step brought her closer to her destination. She was well aware that disclosing everything she had learned today to the entire village would cause havoc. Naruto was the son of Konoha's greatest hero, Sasuke. The boy had been shunned or verbally abused by a large portion of the village his entire life. Some clans and families continued to deny his existence. Buildings received more attention than Naruto did. Hinata reflected on what Naruto had said in the academy. "Someday, all of Konoha will recognize me," he used to say. Nonetheless, the scrolls in her hands would force many of those who denied him to acknowledge him in some way. They would only acknowledge his parents, not the young man or his achievements. He wasn't the man she'd fallen in love with. Love. Such a simple word, but it never matches the emotions it represents. It had started as a simple idea years before. No one seemed to want to be around while watching the boy. Seeing the boy pushed aside, denied friends, and pushed out of businesses. But he never stopped trying to get attention. Being denied training or intentionally hampered by the very teachers who were supposed to assist him. Seeing him work so hard to succeed had inspired her to find the strength to keep going. As their ninja careers approached, inspiration turned to infatuation. Hinata knew Naruto was impressed by strength, so she pushed herself beyond her limits during her first Chunin exam. Weeks later, his admission that he liked people like her gave her hope that he would feel the same way for her that she did for him. Naruto was already a man in her eyes after returning from Jiraiya's training. In the face of death or worse, his bravery never wavered. She was aware that her feelings had matured during those years as well. She came to a halt just outside Tsunade's office. If everything was revealed, she would be subjected to the same treatment Naruto received. But she had previously endured harsh treatment. She'd grown stronger under the scrutiny of a clan that would not tolerate failure. She had earned their admiration. Now, she'd gladly throw it all away for the one chance her heart desired. She desired Naruto-kun. Shizune noticed Hinata walking into the office. She looked up at Hinata and noticed the official seals on the scrolls she was holding. Shizune let out a small gasp as he noticed the Hyuga heir's expressive smile. Shizune was well aware that Hinata rarely smiled in public and never in this manner. The young woman's face was lit up with joy. "Tsunade-sama!" Shizune yelled before sprinting to the inner office. "Hinata has arrived with some documents for you." Hinata was led into the office and made to stand before Tsunade. "My father has asked me to hand over to you, Tsunade-sama, the scrolls entrusted to him by the Sandaime Hokage. They contain Uzumaki Naruto's witnessed birth record as well as proof of his lineage as the son of the Yondaime Hokage." Hinata paused, tears of joy streaming down her cheeks. The second scroll is sealed with all of the Yondaime's personal papers, private effects, and jutsu scrolls. It serves as legal proof of Naruto identity. Cons. Tsunade closed her eyes to protect herself from her own tears. Hiyashi had them all along. When I first took office, I should have confronted him on this. I should have expected the old man to entrust those items to the fourth's best friend. "Shizune, where have you stashed my sake? This merits a celebration. We can finally show the council who Naruto is." Hinata's smile faded as Tsunade directed Shizune to the drinks. Tsunade-sama, I'm confused. You knew who Naruto was all along?" "Yes, I knew Hinata. We lacked the resources to prove what we already knew." Jiraiya was aware, but the council ordered him to leave Konoha soon after the Kyuubi attack to investigate the cause. But his word alone was insufficient to bring to the council, and few trusted him anyway. The record of Naruto's birth, which Jiraiya had submitted as his godfather, mysteriously vanished and was never added to the council archives, allowing them to deny everything. Even those of us who knew kept quiet because even a hint of this would cause many people to try to suppress it in some way. Now that there are enough younger people on the council, and the old ones who still dislike Naruto and the Yondaime are in the minority, we can finally bring Naruto's heritage to light. This document from your father was the last thing we needed. His no official stance policy on Naruto has served him well for the past 16 years, and now this will blow the anti-Naruto faction of the council out of the water and allow us to recognize him. Congratulations, Hinata. Did you do all of that for me? Ken was taken aback. I did, Ken-kun. And I'd do it again. I've been doing it for 8 years, since you went missing. Nobody believed me when I said you were still alive. I paid for the missions to follow up on leads about your whereabouts. Kiba persisted in pressuring me to declare you dead and move on, but I couldn't explain to him what I knew. The Toad contract is kept in a secure room in the house. I couldn't tell anyone about the contract because it would have been taken by other people in the village. The Toads know as long as a signer is alive. Jiraiya-sama died just before the Akatsuki invasion, and the Toads knew he was gone. The same was true for you, Ken. Because your chakra had been sealed away, the Toads knew you were alive but couldn't find you. The Toad Gamakichi pays me visits on occasion with information on potential leads. They are powerful summons, but they cannot move around easily or unnoticed in certain areas. So it was up to me to look into the majority of them. My old team pitched in when they could, but with the war, it became more difficult to make the trips. I even disobeyed my team leader, Kurenai, in order to follow up on a faulty lead. Because of this, she attempted to have my ninja status revoked. Things have improved slightly there, but I still cannot forgive her. Ken just stood there staring as the strong woman he was getting to know burst into tears. She had made numerous sacrifices for him without his knowledge. As she cried, he instinctively wrapped his arms around her and held her. She put everything on the line for the person she cared about. The person who was trapped inside his head. In his mind, he decided that he would find a way to be worthy of her sacrifice, and the only way to do so was to accept the unsealing he had been considering rejecting. Hinata raised her eyes to Ken. He could see the redness in her eyes from crying from this close, and he smiled at her. Does that conclude the story? You find a prince and marry him? No, it wasn't that simple, Hiashi chuckled. Tsunade summoned Naruto soon after Hinata delivered the scrolls. When Naruto entered, Hinata was already there. Hey, Granny Tsunade, what did you want? Yelled the hyperactive blonde at Tsunade. This will end up being the ultimate prank on Naruto, and to make it better, it isn't a prank, Tsunade smirked. Naruto, Hinata was gracious enough to bring over some documents from the Hyuga vault. They are relevant to you. What is the Hyuga? How could the Hyuga know anything about me? It appears Hiashi was a friend of your father. The scrolls contain your birth certificate and your parents' personal effects, Tsunade explained with a smile. Oh, Naruto replied quietly. Tsunade, Shizune, and Hinata were all taken aback by Naruto's lack of reaction. But aren't you excited to find out who your parents are? I already knew who my parents were, Naruto said, his face sad. Years ago, I figured it out. My parents were the fourth and his wife. Tsunade was stunned but inquired, you really knew and never told anyone? Who would have thought? In the same quiet tone, Naruto said. He approached Tsunade's desk, took a black magic marker from it, and walked over to the picture of the 4th of July on the wall. He then drew his whisker marks on the glass before dropping the marker to the floor. If you take the time to look, it's actually quite obvious. Naruto then walked out the office window. Tsunade exhaled deeply. Well, that was a huge downer. Hinata stood motionless. Her heart was racing so fast that she leapt after Naruto without thinking. It took her an hour, but she eventually tracked down Naruto at his favorite training facility. Naruto sat atop the center of the 3 posts, which stood near the memorial stone. He was just staring at Hokage Mountain. She stood off to the side, staring at him. "You are free to leave, Hinata." "I know you're there," Naruto said. She approached the post, hopped atop the end post, and sat down. "Had a rough day, huh?" In a quiet voice, she inquired. Naruto simply nodded. "Every day will be a struggle after Granny Tsunade reveals who my parents were. People from all walks of life will be looking for me. Not after me like Akatsuki, but because of who my parents were. It's sort of acknowledgement, Naruto." "No, it's not. They will recognize Yandaime's son, not Naruto. You seem to have given it a lot of thought." "Yeah. Going around with Jiraiya made me see Sasuke's deal with a dozen princes a dozen times. Girls fawning over the wealthy man, hoping for a share of his fortune. The girl who gets the famous guy is the winner. He could be ugly, fat, or have a demon in his stomach, but it wouldn't matter because his name was what they really wanted. The old man told me something when I was little, Hinata." Naruto shook his head. "I was lonely because no one would speak to me one day." "Don't be sad, Naruto," he said. "Look up at the faces on the mountain if you're feeling down." He pointed to the 4th's carving. "He is keeping an eye on you, Naruto. If you ever feel lonely, just remember how much your parents loved you before they died." "Knowing that they loved you sounds kind of comforting, Naruto." Naruto slowly nodded. "You know, they're not the only ones," Hinata said softly enough for Naruto to hear. "Naruto, how did you know I was there? Didn't I think I was quiet enough?" she inquired. "I always know when you're there, Hinata," Naruto said, for the first time since she arrived. "Like I said, I know there's an Anbu in the trees about 50 yards away." Hinata saw nothing when Naruto pointed to a group of shadows. "It's easier to pretend otherwise, but in Konoha, I know when I'm being followed." "Oh," Hinata said softly and sadly. "How come you never said anything?" The Anbu, on the other hand, are old news. After so long, protection, monitoring, whatever you want to call it, doesn't really matter. It was enjoyable working with you. It felt like a game at times. Because I couldn't play with other kids very often, I pretended we were playing a game. I figured if you knew I could detect your presence, you'd stop. Because so few people wanted to be near me, it felt good to have someone who did, even if it was just following me around." Naruto was speaking in such hushed tones that Hinata could barely hear him from her vantage point. "You know something?" Naruto chuckled. "You are the first person to see me in this state since Pervy Sage died." Naruto now looked up at the moon. "Growl like an idiot, be loud, and no one will bother you because they believe you're fine." I couldn't hide anything from that old man. He was also a master at it, so he could see past the grin. "Oh, how I miss him." Hinata was deafeningly silent in response. She sat quietly with Naruto, just being there. A week after the night in the training area, Hinata was walking with Shino and Kiba. The announcement of Naruto's ancestry had the entire village buzzing. Because the Akatsuki invasion had made so many people aware of Naruto's status as a Jinchuriki, the fact that he was the son of the 4th made a lot more sense. Many people still looked down on him because of the demon he carried, but many more had changed their minds about him. A swarm of teenage girls had started following Naruto, but he hadn't been seen on the streets since the announcement. When traveling through the village, the blonde ninja kept to himself or moved along the rooftops. Kiba once joked that the guy had craved attention for years and was now avoiding it now that he could get it. The young man had no idea what hit him at the next sparring session when Hinata nearly knocked him out. Shino simply shook his head at Inuzuka's folly in upsetting Hinata. Naruto jumped down from a roof in front of them, surprising the trio. He spoke with a solemn expression, "Hinata, I need to speak with you. Alone. Please meet me at my training area." After that, the blonde bolted. Kiba was irritated, but Shino remained silent as usual. Hinata excused herself from the rest of her teammates and went to meet Naruto. She could see Naruto pacing back and forth as she walked across the open grass to the training posts. She came to a halt a few feet away and waited for him to continue walking. When he turned to face her, he was holding a replica of a familiar scroll. "Hinata, do you know what this is?" "It's a betrothal contract," she replied quietly. "Granny Tsunade dropped it on me this morning," Naruto nodded. "You and I are supposed to tie the knot. Were you aware of this?" Hinata nodded slightly, sensing his rage at the situation. "How long have you been aware of this, Hinata?" "A couple of weeks. I discovered it after my birthday party." "So you knew and didn't say anything about it?" Hinata nodded as she looked at the angry blonde, a few tears welling up in her eyes. "How come, Hinata?" Naruto insisted. Seconds passed in silence as he studied her before she said, I was afraid." "Are you afraid of me?" said Naruto. His face turned purple as his emotions erupted once more in rage. "You're scared of me? You're afraid you won't be seen with a monster?" Hinata bit her lip and shook her head no before yelling angrily at him, "No." Naruto was slowed and confused by her outburst. "No," she explained, "I was afraid you wouldn't want me." Hinata's head bowed in sorrow as her tears flowed. She took Naruto's stunned silence as a cue to proceed. "What do you mean, Hinata, you wouldn't want me? Being the son of the fourth, you could marry almost anyone in the Fire Country right now. I'm just me. How come neither you nor your father said anything before this? Most of the clan dislikes you because of the Kyuubi and would depose my father if he insisted on the betrothal proceeding. If that happened, they would also force the caged bird seal onto Hanabi. However, because you are of legal age, you have the option of rejecting the betrothal." "Could I?" Naruto was even more perplexed now. Naruto remained silent for a long time before speaking again. He took a step closer to Hinata. "What do you want, Hinata?" he asked softly. Hinata raised her gaze to his bright blue eyes. They were open and expecting something. She could stare into those eyes indefinitely and never grow tired of it. "I want my Naruto-kun," she said quietly, drawing strength from within herself. "Why? What makes you want me?" After all these years, he was finally starting to understand her. "Because I love you," she said once more. Naruto took a small step towards her but was stopped by Hinata, who embraced him in a bone-crushing hug as she tried not to pass out. "Because I love you and want to marry you, Naruto-kun." Ken sat motionless as Hinata finished her story. It was late, and the Uzumaki needed to get home as soon as possible. Hiyashi smiled cheerfully and took up the story. After that, it was a piece of cake. Naruto presented his copy of the betrothal after a month of meeting Hinata in private and getting to know her better. The clan had no choice but to submit or risk losing more than just prestige. Hinata's marriage to a more noble person allowed her to leave the succession, and Hanabi took over as heir. She intends to get rid of the caged bird seal that has hung over her head for so many years over the next generation. She is currently the most capable member of the clan with the gentle fist and has the support of the entire clan's younger members. She won't even learn the activation seal from me, which I approve of. Hinata and Naruto married on January 1st, shortly after she turned 18. But their joy was short-lived when Naruto went missing on a mission and Hinata discovered she was pregnant. The clan completed their part of the contract in the Uzumaki compound, and I installed the gate there. The children were the ones who made things better. There is nothing demonic in them, but they both have huge chakra reserves and a faster rate of healing, just like Naruto. Young Hisashi is already on track to outperform Neji with Gentle Fist. However, I believe his name choice did more to bring the clan together than anything else. It definitely appealed to the boy's grandfather and uncle. Hinata blushed and stretched in response to that remark. We need to get the kids home and into their own beds as soon as possible. I believe they both passed out in the playroom hours ago. The children were silently carried to the Uzumaki household and placed in their beds. Hinata softly kissed Ken's scarred cheek before letting him into his room and retiring to her own for the night.
So that's it for today. I hope you guys enjoyed it. Don't forget to like, share and subscribe to the channel for more awesome stories like this. Thank you. See you all in my next video.